The phone kept ringing. Loud, insistent, and almost echoing in the empty office. Emma glanced up from her computer, her hands hovering over the keyboard. It was well past 8 p.m., and everyone had gone home hours ago. Everyone except her, and the billionaire CEO whose name made headlines for every reason imaginable. The phone on his mahogany desk buzzed again. She bit her lip, looking toward his glass-walled office. The lights inside were dim, the chair pushed back, his jacket still hanging behind it. He had left in a hurry earlier, mumbling something about a private dinner meeting. But his phone, his sleek black phone, was still there, glowing with an unknown caller's name. Emma hesitated. She wasn't supposed to touch his things. She was just the assistant. Just the woman who fetched his coffee, typed his emails, and organized his world so he could rule it. But something about the call, it felt urgent. The name flashing on the screen read, Daniel, private. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for it. It's just a call, she whispered to herself. If it's important, I'll tell him later. She picked up. Hello. A deep voice came through the line, sharp, impatient. Finally, Ryan, you picked up. We're waiting. Is the deal confirmed or not? Emma froze. Ryan. That was her boss, Ryan Cole, the billionaire who built an empire in finance and real estate before he turned 35. He was brilliant, charismatic, and as cold as the city skyline that framed his office. This isn't Mr. Cole, she said softly. This is his assistant. He left his phone. The man interrupted her, his tone shifting. His assistant? Listen carefully. If Ryan didn't confirm, he's walking straight into a trap. Do you understand? A setup. You need to warn him. The line went dead. Emma blinked, her heart racing. The word trap echoed in her mind like a thunderclap. A trap? What kind of trap? For someone like Ryan Cole, that could mean anything: corporate sabotage, blackmail, even danger. She stared at the phone, the silence around her thickening. For a long second, she considered ignoring it. Whatever her boss was tangled in wasn't her business. She could just leave, lock up, and go home to her tiny apartment and leftover pasta. But her instincts wouldn't let her. Something in the man's voice, urgent, terrified, made her stomach twist. And the thought of her boss, who had always been so untouchable, walking blindly into danger. Emma grabbed her coat and his phone and ran out of the building. The night air bit at her cheeks as she hurried through the downtown streets. Ryan's car, a black Bentley, was gone, but she remembered hearing him say something about meeting investors at a private restaurant on the bay. She could barely afford a cab, but she flagged one down anyway. Bayfront Grill, she said breathlessly. The driver nodded, and the car rolled into the glowing maze of city lights. As the cab weaved through traffic, Emma stared at the phone in her hand. Her reflection in the window looked pale, her brown eyes wide with worry. She scrolled through his recent messages, trying to find clues. Most were from names she didn't recognize: powerful people, CEOs, politicians. Then one caught her eye. A text from an unknown number, just sent 30 minutes ago. Meet at 9. Don't bring anyone. It's time we settle this. Her chest tightened. Whoever sent that didn't sound friendly. Miss, the driver said, pulling her out of her thoughts. You okay? You look pale. I'm fine, she lied. Just, trying to stop someone from making a big mistake. He gave her a sympathetic glance in the mirror. Sounds important. It might be life or death, she whispered. Meanwhile, at Bayfront Grill, Ryan Cole sat at a candlelit table overlooking the dark water. The restaurant was nearly empty, just a few couples dining quietly, their reflections shimmering in the glass windows. Across from him sat two men he'd known for years, business partners turned rivals. One was smiling too easily, the other avoiding eye contact. Something about the air felt wrong, heavy with tension. Ryan leaned back, adjusting his cufflinks. "So," he said calmly, "you called me here to talk about the merger." "Exactly," said Victor Hale, his tone oily. "We just need your final signature tonight. Once you sign, we go public tomorrow." Ryan studied them both. He didn't trust them. He never had. But the deal had been weeks in the making, and backing out now would cost him millions. Still, his instincts were prickling. He reached into his pocket, only to realize his phone wasn't there. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. "Something wrong?" Victor asked. Ryan forced a smile. "Left my phone at the office." Victor chuckled. "Don't worry. Tonight, you won't need it." The words hit Ryan strangely. He couldn't tell if it was a joke or a warning. He shifted slightly in his seat, eyes narrowing. Back outside, Emma paid the driver and sprinted across the wet pavement toward the glowing restaurant. She could see Ryan inside, perfectly composed in his tailored gray suit, his expression unreadable. She hesitated at the entrance. What was she supposed to say? That a stranger on the phone told her he was in danger? That would sound insane. But doing nothing wasn't an option. She walked inside, trying to steady her breathing. The hostess gave her a polite smile. "Good evening, miss. Do you have a reservation?" "No, but I'm, Mr. Cole's assistant. He left his phone, and it's urgent I give it to him." The hostess frowned, then nodded. "Of course. He's in the private dining area." Emma hurried through the archway into the softly lit section of the restaurant. Ryan looked up immediately, surprise flickering across his face. "Emma," he said, standing. "What on earth are you doing here?" She placed his phone on the table, her voice trembling. "You left this at the office." There was a call. A man named Daniel. He said," she hesitated, lowering her voice. "He said you're walking into a trap." Victor's eyes snapped up, sharp and calculating. "A trap?" he said, laughing lightly. "What nonsense is this?" Emma swallowed hard. "I don't know what it means, but the call sounded serious." He hung up right after saying it. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Daniel?" He frowned, remembering. Daniel Pierce, his private security advisor. The only man he trusted fully. He turned toward Victor and his partner. "You two wouldn't happen to know anything about this trap, would you?" Victor's smile faltered. "Ryan, don't tell me you believe your assistant's fairy tale." Ryan's voice dropped. "Daniel doesn't make mistakes." The table went silent. Then, almost too fast to notice, Victor's partner reached into his jacket. "Get down!" Ryan shouted, grabbing Emma and pulling her behind the table just as a muffled pop echoed. The sound was soft, but unmistakable. A silencer. Screams erupted across the restaurant. Plates shattered. Glass fell. Emma's heart pounded as Ryan shielded her with his body. "Stay down," he ordered. She was trembling. "What's happening?" "Exactly what Daniel warned about," he muttered. He peeked over the edge of the table, eyes narrowing as Victor fled toward the kitchen. The other man was down, his gun sliding across the floor. Security alarms began to blare. Ryan stood, his expression hard as steel. "Emma, get to the back exit. Now." I can't just leave you." "That's an order." But she didn't move. She couldn't. Not when he was about to run after a man with a gun. He sighed in frustration, then glanced at her trembling hands. "Fine. Stay behind me." Together, they moved through the chaos, staff yelling, glass crunching underfoot, and the smell of smoke from a tipped-over candle filling the air. They found Victor near the service hallway, frantically trying to unlock a side door. When he saw Ryan, his face went pale. You don't understand, Ryan, he stammered. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Ryan advanced slowly. You tried to have me killed. Victor shook his head, panicked. No, it was them. The investors, they wanted to take you out of the deal. By murdering me. Emma stood frozen behind Ryan, her chest tight. This was the man everyone idolized, the calm, confident billionaire who commanded rooms effortlessly. But now, she saw something deeper. Anger. Betrayal. Humanity. Before Victor could answer, sirens wailed outside. He bolted for the back door. Ryan lunged forward, grabbing his arm. They struggled, knocking over a metal cart. Emma screamed as Victor shoved Ryan against the wall, trying to break free. Without thinking, she grabbed a heavy serving tray and swung. It struck Victor across the shoulder, sending him crashing to the ground. Ryan stared at her, breathing hard. Remind me never to underestimate you again. She gave a shaky laugh. You're welcome. Police rushed in seconds later, shouting commands. Victor was dragged away, muttering incoherently about deals gone wrong. Emma stood there, shaking, her hands clutching the tray like a shield. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Not as an assistant, but as someone who had just saved his life. Come on, he said gently, taking her arm. Let's get you out of here. Outside, the flashing red and blue lights painted the night in chaos. Paramedics checked her for injuries, but she waved them off. Her mind was still spinning. Ryan stood beside her, his jacket draped over her shoulders. You shouldn't have come, he said quietly. If I hadn't, she whispered, you'd be dead. He gave a small, almost rueful smile. I suppose I owe you more than a thank you. Emma looked up at him, her throat tight. I didn't do it for that. I just couldn't ignore the call. He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on her face. You have good instincts, Emma. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the sirens fading behind them. Neither of them knew that this night, born out of fear and instinct, was only the beginning of something far deeper. Something neither of them saw coming. The next morning, the city woke to headlines about an attempted attack on billionaire Ryan Cole. Reporters camped outside his building, flashing cameras as his car pulled into the underground garage. Inside, Ryan walked beside Emma, both silent. She was still wearing his jacket, too big for her small frame, her hair slightly disheveled from the long night. She looked exhausted, but calm. As soon as they entered his private elevator, he finally spoke. You didn't have to come last night. Emma glanced up. You said that already. I mean it, he said softly. You could have been hurt. Badly. I know, she admitted. But I couldn't shake what that man said on the phone. It just felt wrong to ignore it. Ryan studied her, a faint smile breaking through the usual stoic expression. You trusted your gut. That's rare. She shrugged. It's all I had. When the elevator doors opened, his top-floor office was unusually quiet. News crews had swarmed the street below, and his staff had been told to stay home for the day. Ryan walked to the window, staring out at the skyline. Victor's in custody, he said. He's already confessed that the meeting was a setup. They planned to force me to sign over my holdings, then make it look like an accident. Emma's stomach turned. That's awful. It's the cost of this life, he said bitterly. People smile to your face while sharpening knives behind your back. She hesitated before speaking. Maybe not everyone's like that. Ryan looked at her reflection in the glass. You really think so? Yes, she said quietly. Some people still care, even when they don't have a reason to. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, he turned around, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. Emma, I owe you my life. And yet, you didn't even hesitate. She tried to smile. Guess I'm not good at following the rulebook. That drew a laugh from him, genuine, unguarded. The kind of laugh that surprised even him. He gestured for her to sit. You've been my assistant for, what, 6 months now? 7, she corrected. 7, he repeated. And in those 7 months, I've barely looked beyond your efficiency. But last night, you proved something I value more than loyalty or skill, you have heart. She blushed slightly, unsure what to say. You don't have to. I do, he interrupted gently. I've spent years surrounded by people who only see the money, the power, the name. But you saw a person worth saving. Her eyes met his. Everyone's worth saving, Mr. Cole. Ryan, he corrected. Call me Ryan. The warmth in his tone startled her. Later that afternoon, Ryan's security advisor, Daniel Pierce, the same man who had called, arrived at the office. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp eyes that scanned every corner before speaking. Mr. Cole, Daniel said, shaking his hand firmly. Glad to see you alive. I'm glad you called when you did, Ryan replied. But how did you know? Daniel glanced at Emma. Partly luck. One of my contacts overheard talk of the meeting being a front. I tried to warn you, but I didn't expect your assistant to answer. He turned to Emma with genuine gratitude. You saved your boss's life, miss. Most people would have ignored a strange call. Emma smiled shyly. I almost did. Ryan looked between them. She's being modest. She also knocked out a man twice her size with a serving tray. Daniel laughed. I might have to offer her a job in security. Not happening, Ryan said immediately. She's staying with me. Emma blinked. Staying. He caught his mistake, then clarified. I mean, staying here, in the company. You're being promoted. Effective immediately. Her jaw dropped. Promoted? To what? To personal operations manager, he said. You'll handle my direct schedule, coordinate security, travel, communications, basically, you'll run my day-to-day. That sounds like 3 jobs in one. Ryan smiled faintly. And worth every penny of the raise that comes with it. Emma felt her eyes sting unexpectedly. You don't have to do that. I want to, he said simply. You didn't just save me, you reminded me that not everyone in this world is driven by greed. That still matters. For a moment, the air between them felt heavier, gentle, meaningful. Over the following weeks, things began to change. Ryan wasn't the same man who had barked orders and kept everyone at arm's length. He spoke to Emma with ease now, trusted her with sensitive work, even joked occasionally. One evening, as the sun painted gold across the office skyline, she found him standing by the window again. He looked deep in thought. Long day? She asked softly. Just thinking about how close I came to losing everything, he admitted. And how strange it is that one small decision, your decision, changed everything. Emma smiled. Sometimes the smallest choices save the biggest lives. He turned toward her, eyes thoughtful. You ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't picked up that phone? She shook her head. I don't want to. He chuckled lightly. Neither do I. Silence fell again, but it was comfortable this time. She started to leave, but he stopped her. Emma, he said. There's something I've been meaning to ask. She hesitated. What is it? He stepped closer, his voice low. When everyone else treats me like a symbol, money, power, status, you look at me like I'm human. Why? She smiled gently. Because you are. You just forgot for a while. That answer seemed to hit him deeper than she expected. Ryan exhaled slowly, eyes softening. You're remarkable, you know that. Emma blushed again. I just did what anyone would do. No, he said. You did what no one else did. Months later, Ryan's company not only recovered but grew stronger. The scandal was behind him, and investors admired how he handled the crisis, with honesty and integrity, something rare in his world. At a company gala celebrating their rebound, he spotted Emma across the ballroom, wearing a simple navy dress that made her look effortlessly graceful. She was laughing with Daniel, holding a glass of sparkling water. Ryan couldn't help smiling. She looked happy, free. When their eyes met, she excused herself and walked over. You clean up well, Mr. Cole. Ryan, he reminded her again, smiling. You look incredible. Thank you. I still can't believe all this happened because I picked up a phone. He laughed softly. Maybe some calls are meant to be answered. They stood there, surrounded by music and chatter, but it felt like the world had narrowed to just them. Emma, he said quietly, I've built an empire on logic, numbers, and control. But you reminded me of something I forgot, trust, instinct, heart. Her gaze softened. And you reminded me that power doesn't always corrupt, it can protect, if used right. He nodded. Maybe we saved each other. She smiled. Maybe we did. For the first time in years, Ryan Cole felt something more powerful than success, peace. And it all began with a single missed phone call that someone cared enough to answer. That night, as Emma walked out of the building, she glanced back at the towering glass windows glowing above the city. She remembered her first day, how invisible she felt, just another assistant in a world of giants. Now, she realized something profound. Sometimes, fate doesn't shout, it rings quietly on a forgotten phone, waiting for someone brave enough to answer. And she did. Because in saving him, she found herself.